Hello and welcome to this bonus episode of Political Debrief. I'm your host, Josh Oliverio. Yesterday, the Canada Grocery Rebate hit the bank accounts of nearly 11 million Canadians. The payment of between $200 and just over $600 is designed to help Canadians pay for groceries during these inflationary times. To talk about this benefit and other CRA-related things, I am joined by Peter Fragiskatos, the Member of Parliament for London North Centre and Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of National Revenue. That's the Minister responsible for the Canada Revenue Agency. Hope you enjoy our conversation. All right, Mr. Fragiskatos, thank you so much for joining me.
It's great to be with you. Thanks for having me.
So, to start off, do you want to tell me a little bit about some of the ways that the federal government is trying to make the lives of young Canadians more affordable?
Yeah, of course. Obviously, we're in a situation of inflation. Things are expensive for a variety of reasons. The way that the pandemic has upended existing supply chains, all the way down to climate change and the impact that's had on, in particular, food prices. And so today is the day of the introduction of the grocery rebate, an idea that was first put in place in Budget 2023. We made sure that we worked with other parties in a minority parliament to expedite the passage of that initiative. And today, as long as people filed their taxes in 2021, they can get access to that grocery rebate either through a check from the CRA or in most cases, the vast majority of cases, in fact, they can access it through the direct deposit system of the CRA. We're talking about 11 million Canadians who will get access to this. We're talking about well over 100,000 people here in Kitchener-Waterloo who will get access to it. It is a top-up to an existing credit, the GST-HST credit, which comes quarterly on a tax-free basis. And yes, it's going to help people with grocery costs. Now, it doesn't have to go to groceries, but most people will put it towards groceries in the context of an expensive situation at grocery stores throughout the country.
So, do you want to tell us a little bit more about that rebate, where it came from? Is this a one-off? Is it something that your government's going to do again at some point?
It's a one-time measure. It is a one-time measure. We've seen a call for assistance from Canadians, and I think we have to empathize with their situation, show kindness, and act accordingly. And so there is this approach that we've taken, but there's many other measures that we've introduced as well. There's the Canada Child Benefit that's been in existence for a number of years and which continues to make a tremendous difference. Hundreds of thousands of kids lifted out of poverty right across Canada. It's been called the most important initiative from a social policy perspective since the introduction of public health care in the 1960s. There is the child care program recently introduced that have brought down costs very significantly in the province of Ontario. The average per day cost of childcare is now at $23. By 2025, we anticipate that number will be at $10 a day. Again, huge savings, thousands of dollars a year saved by families who can now put those savings towards the mortgage, rent, groceries, whatever it may be. We're talking about the Canada Dental Benefit as well, recently introduced. That goes to families earning a modest and a lower income for their kids. This is, at least in its first phase, it's been for children, and then it will be expanded to include more Canadians, including seniors, as long as they're eligible. Again, we're focused on, well, in the context of inflation, what can government do to help? It can do a number of things, but it has to be squarely focused on those earning a limited income, a modest or lower income, and those are just some of the measures we've put forward. There's the Canada Workers Benefit, the Climate Action Incentive. All of these, by the way, are going to be. We're going to see Canadians get the support, particularly in the month of July. So July is a very big month from a benefits perspective.
More specifically, who qualifies for this benefit and how much can they receive from it?
So it will vary. If we're talking about the grocery rebate, it will vary according to family size and income. Take a family of 4, for example. They can get up to $467. Seniors can get up to $225. A single individual can get well over $200, closer to $250 in fact. A single individual with a child can get close to $400. Again, this is a top up to the existing GST, HST credit that they would receive at the beginning of July. So it all depends on income. There's not just one straightforward approach, but generally speaking, the 11 million Canadians that I referred to who are eligible for this grocery rebate are earning anywhere from $65,000 or less. But to be straight about it, it's a targeted measure that sees millions of Canadians, everyday people, our neighbors, kids. I mean, right across the country, people are going to be supported. It's an important thing at a difficult time.
And then how would you respond to maybe the concerns that would be raised by this, saying that it just kind of adds extra government spending, adds money on, or adds fuel onto the inflationary fire?
Yeah, I've heard the criticism, as have a number of economists who have looked at it and said, well, let's put the facts on the table. That's what they've said, and I would agree. So we have a Canadian economy that, from a annual basis, I mean, we're talking about one of the largest economies in the world. Very, very, very significant economy. This is a $2.5 billion measure, which, yes, is not nothing, but in the context of the wider Canadian economy, counts as a pebble in the lake, if you like. There is a financial impact, but what would be the impact if we didn't go ahead with this? Right? This is a support that people will use towards putting food on the table, literally. There's no inflationary impact, which is what your question suggests. There isn't, because if there was, then there would be an expectation. We would have to assume and agree that there would be an expectation created on the part of those receiving the benefit that this is somehow going to create more expectations as far as where costs are going, more money circulating in the economy. When you have more money circulating in the economy and a limited number of goods and services, then yes, prices do go up. But it's not creating that expectation. I don't see the argument, and any economist that's looked at this has not made the determination that it's inflationary at all.
Switching topics a little bit, well, we've got you. Your portfolio is mostly the CRA.
Mm-hmm.
Earlier this year, right before the 2022 tax filing deadline, there was a massive strike of CRA workers, and there were a lot of concerns from Canadians about whether they're going to be able to get their taxes filed on time, if they did it correctly, etc. Have we fully recovered from that strike now, or are we still kind of working through the backlog that's been created?
CRA workers are back to work. Keep in mind that it was CRA public servants who were instrumental in helping get the country through an extraordinarily difficult time. The CERB, for example, the Canada Emergency Response Benefit, or the CEWS, the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy, the CEBA, the Canada Emergency Business Account. These were signature programs that were introduced by the federal government, but they were administered by the CRA and specifically CRA public servants. And so I think that has to be front and center when it comes to any conversation about what the CRA has been doing. It continues to be engaged in different ways now. The various benefits that we talked about before, they're administered by the CRA. So I look at a situation where call wait times have come down in recent years. I look at a situation where our public servants at the CRA have done their very best and trained for new positions in the context of the pandemic. Sometimes they were working in one area and then had to come on board to help with CERB and CEWS and CEBA and things like this. They did a very good job in trying times, and to answer your question, they're back to work and working hard as ever to support Canadians.
Recently, I think it was last week, there was a report from the CEO of Shopify. There was a little bit of a controversy there, saying that the minister's office asked Shopify to back-channel the financial data of businesses to verify tax compliance. How would you respond to the concerns around privacy that have emerged? Do you think it's appropriate for a government to ask a business to share confidential customer information without consent?
Well, as you know, the matter is before the courts, so it would be inappropriate for me to get into the specifics. However, I do think it's incumbent on any tax agency, leave aside the matter of the Canada Revenue Agency for a moment. I think it's incumbent on any tax agency to take the principle of tax fairness extremely seriously and do whatever it can to ensure tax fairness. And the CRA has expressed a desire, has put the question towards Shopify, and it'll have to be sorted out. Again, it's a court that will have to make the decision, and I think Canadians can rest assured in that. It's now up to the judicial process for the matter to be worked through, and we'll see where things go.
My last question for you. If you had to go back to when you were 14 or 15, what's one piece of advice you would give yourself?
To not think that I'd be playing in the NHL one day. That would be, I think I put too much stock in that. One piece of advice, look, and I think you're living the example, do what you're passionate about, right? Find that one thing that gets you excited to get up in the morning. You know, for me, it's politics. I love public policy. I love serving my community. I'm a member of Parliament in London, and I do help our Minister of National Revenue, the Honourable Diane Leboutillier, in her capacity as Minister. Wonderful things to do, and I just hope that young people, as they think about their future, don't get too bogged down or tied up in the messages that sometimes circulate on social media about what one should be doing, what one should be saying, what one should look like. These kinds of things, I think, ultimately prevent us from having the kind of culture that allows people to maximize their potential. I would just say work hard, focus on your friends. All too often, you know, the social media environment that we have, everybody's looking at their phone instead of actually picking up the phone and calling a friend and just socializing that way. Be yourself and look forward to the future, because although we've been through very difficult times and you know, inflation is coming down, which is good, but it still remains a challenging time. There's a lot to be optimistic about going ahead.
All right, Peter Fragiskatos, thank you so much for coming on Political Debrief.
This was great. Thank you.
And that's it for this bonus episode of Political Debrief. Thank you so much for listening. I would invite you to subscribe to Political Debrief wherever you get your podcasts or on YouTube, and follow me on Twitter at Josh Oliverio or on Instagram at Josh_Oliverio. Thanks again for listening, and I'll be back with a regularly scheduled episode in a couple Mondays.